Good morning, everyone. Today is September 27, 2021, and it is now 10:06 a.m. Today we have the Executive Director of CUC, Mr. Gary Camacho, who is present in the chamber, actually. Just wanted to let the viewing public know that two of our members will be joining us virtually, and for that reason, we will need to take a 30-minute recess or break before we actually begin the questioning as we try to bring them online. We would like to welcome back our Vice Chair, Mr. BJ Atto, Representative BJ Atto, who will be joining us virtually. And also Rep. Donald Magnolia is in Rhoda, and he will also be joining us virtually. So I ask for everyone's patience as we try to bring them online. Thank you. Ready? We're going to start. Good morning, everyone. Today's hearing, we will have CUC Executive Director, Mr. Gary Camacho. And today's agenda was published actually on September 23rd, and this hearing was supposed to commence on Friday, September 24th. However, due to the shutdown because of inclement weather in our area, we had to reschedule, and we thank the Executive Director for being patient with us as well as the viewing public. At this time, I would like to ask Executive Director Gary Camacho to please join us in the chamber. Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Before we begin, I'd like to get a motion to adopt today's agenda, please.
So move.
Thank you, Vice Speaker and Vice Chair. There's a motion on the floor. Can I get a second? Thank you. The motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, please say nay. At this time, the agenda is hereby adopted. I'd like to recognize the virtual presence of Vice Chair Bloss Jonathan Attal, who is in quarantine. Welcome home, Vice Attal.
Thank you, Chair, colleagues. Thank you. Good morning to everyone.
And I'd also like to recognize the virtual attendance of Representative Donald Manglonia, who is in the CNMI, but is currently in Rhoda. Rep. Donald, please acknowledge.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I am here online.
Thank you. With 5 members present, there being a quorum established, we hereby call this meeting to order. And at this time, I would like to move on to the agenda. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make comments? If you do want to make comments, I ask that you please limit your comments to 5 minutes and relative to the topic at hand. If not, we will move on and receive the testimony of Mr. Gary Camacho. Before we do that, I want to remind the witness that you are not under the focus of this investigation. It's simply that we have information that we received from your office pursuant to a subpoena ducis tecum, and we simply want to ask you information to further clarify the documents and the information we have based on the documents provided by your office. I also want to remind everyone to please put your phone on silent mode at this time and adhere to the COVID protocol in place. We will begin. Mr. Camacho, may I ask you to please raise your right hand while Legal Counsel Joe Tyrone will administer the oath to you.
Mr. Gary P. Camacho, do you solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. I'd also like to introduce the members. I've already introduced the 2 members who are with us virtually, Rep. BJ Atto and Rep. Donald. Also in the chamber, we have Representative Vicente Camacho. We also have Representative Ed Probst, Representative Tina Sablon, and Representative Richard Lazama are hereby excused from this meeting. We also have our legislative assistant assigned to the JGO committee, Mr. Cam Nicholas, and our House Legal Counsel, Mr. Joe Tyrone, and also our IT manager, we have Mr. Jonathan Diaz. Thank you and welcome. We will begin at this time, and at this time I would like to recognize the Vice Chair, Representative Bloss Jonathan Atto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome, Executive Director Camacho, to your House chamber. We'll just begin with some preliminary questions so we can get the ball rolling on this agenda for JGO this morning. Mr. Camacho, please state your name and position for the record.
My name is Gary Camacho, Gary P. Camacho, and I'm the Executive Director for the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation.
And how long have you been the executive director for CUC?
Approximately 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. What was your position prior to becoming executive director?
I was the Power Division Manager.
Thank you. How familiar are you with CUC policies and procedures for billings?
I'm average. I think I can have some understanding on it.
Thank you.
It is
What about
important.
policies? What about policies and procedures for disconnections?
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with it, yes.
Okay. Policies and procedures for installations?
Yes, I'm somewhat familiar.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. How about policies and procedures for relocations?
I'm somewhat familiar with it.
Thank you again, Mr. Camacho. And how about policies and procedures for procurement?
Somewhat familiar with it also.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. Those are some preliminary questions, and I yield my time right now, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So you mentioned, Mr. Camacho, that you are somewhat familiar. The questions we have for you today pertaining to the governor's billing and other work orders that were um, ordered by your office. Would you be able to answer truthfully to all the questions we may have today pertaining to disconnections, installations, billings?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure I need to hear the question.
Okay.
That's the area that would vary, obviously. But what won't vary is the truth. I will tell the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho, and we appreciate that. And are you here today with counsel?
No, I'm not.
Thank you. And is there a reason why you're here without counsel? All other witnesses have been appearing with counsel.
Well, I don't want to compare myself with any other witness. With what they've done by having counsel is their prerogative and their right. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't think I need one at this time. I will try to answer all questions to the best of my ability.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. And as we have always reminded witnesses, just as we reminded you this morning, we don't see a need for it, but of course that is your prerogative, and we hope that they mirror, like I said, when the future witnesses, that really these questions are not focused on the witnesses. We are not out to get anybody who comes in here and appears as a witness. So thank you for your honesty and your frankness this morning. At this time, we will proceed. I would like to recognize Representative Ed Probst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you.
One moment, Rep. Probst. You feel free to take off your mask just so we can understand you clearly. Sometimes it muffles on the microphones. Our microphones are not as sensitive as what they have in the Senate. So feel free to take it off. Thank you.
Sure.
You may proceed, Rep. Probst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Executive Director, and to your team for coming here this morning. And we apologize. We were supposed to be last week, and due to the circumstances, here we are. And we also thank you for not just today, but in the past, for always being so forthcoming and cooperative. This is not your first rodeo. You've been up here many times, and I've always been impressed with your ability to just speak the truth and to be so, again, forthcoming. So thank you again. We appreciate your time, sir. I'm going to ask some questions, and please feel free to do your best. And of course, you do have your wonderful team. If you do need reference, please feel free to utilize that as well, Executive Director. My first question, just so for familiarization with billings, just based on your experience and knowledge as the Executive Director of CAUC, what would you say is in a ballpark figure, what would you say is the average electric power consumption per month for a household in the CNMI, roughly?
Is that for both electric and water?
For
Wastewater?
together, yeah, residential household.
I mean, I would imagine around 800,
800.
800, I would imagine, yes.
Okay. Well,
Now again, that varies on the economics,
okay.
but I would imagine 700, 800.
And for residential, for ratepayers, how many ratepayers do we have throughout for Saipan, and Rhoda, roughly?
Roughly, my understanding is about 15,000.
15,000 that are ratepayers. I'm one of the ratepayers, and I can say that I'm glad to know that if that is indeed the average $700 to $800, I'm comfortable because we've been well beyond below that. We're a family of 6, and we struggle. I had our last CUC bill previous to this one at $600, and went crazy because that was the highest. So we always try to keep it 400 or under. So I know the struggles. Moving on, based on your experience and knowledge, what would you say is the average water consumption, just water consumption, per household in the CNMI? Is there some figure that we have per person, or?
Well, I mean, the average per residence, I would imagine, is around 15,000 gallons,
15,000
Yeah.
gallons? Okay.
approximately 15, 16,000 gallons.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, I'd like to, Cam, if you could, please pull up Exhibit 50. And pulling this up for reference, if you could briefly just help us and walk us through the different parts of this particular CUC bill. Can you see that, Director? You have a screen in front of you. Is that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. This is a sample from Governor Ralph Dylan Guerrero Torres's account, and the total for this bill, if you, Cam, could go to the part of the actual total, it totals up to $16,949.45. That is the total. And this billing date is April 25, 2019, which is the date it was issued. Is this correct? Can we go to the date?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay.
I want to remind Mr. Camacho to speak into the microphone. You need to
Oh,
press
just
the
leave it
button.
up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you go up, please, just a little bit more? Is that all the way up the top? Yeah. Because I've got, the billing date, of course, is 4/25 to 5/10. That's the billing date.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
that is the question I had. Thank you. So the billing period that it covers is March 2019 to April 18, 2019. Is this correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So according to this bill that we are looking at, the past due amount at this point here was $20.86. Is that, do we have that figure? You can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. So this was a balance carrying over from previous bills. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So at the very top, what is the customer charge at the top of the bill?
The amount due or the customer charge? Yes.
Yeah, that's $10, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's correct, right?
Yes.
And that's always $10?
Yes.
Okay.
It's always $10.
Thank you. And what is the electric usage?
As it states, it's the amount of electricity per kilowatt hour,
Correct.
number of kilowatt hours it's charged.
Okay. And what rate is the governor charged at for electricity for this account?
It's the it's the government account.
It is the government rate,
Correct.
Okay. And what is the fuel adjustment charge?
That's the cost of fuel to create that number of kilowatt hours.
Okay. And what is the water service charge?
The water service is the service fee for the supply of water.
Supply. And what is the water electric charge?
That's the usage, that's the gallons. Or not the gallons, that's the total cost for the amount of water used.
So based on this, the total electric charge for this month, according to this bill, is $1,619 and 7 cents. Is this correct?
I'm sorry, repeat that? Oh,
The total electric
Yes.
charge is $1,619 and 7 cents. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. And the total water charge is $15,309 and 52 cents. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And to calculate the electric usage for the month, you would subtract the previous meter reading number from the current meter reading number. And that would give you the total kilowatt hours consumed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So based on this, the total number of kilowatt hours used at Governor Ralph Dillon Guerrero Torres' residence, at least for this 1 meter, is 5,004 kilowatt hours. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Based on the total number of kilowatt hours used at Governor Torres' residence, at least for this 1 meter, it's 5,004 kilowatt hours.
That's correct.
That's correct. Thank you. And to calculate water usage, you would do the same thing. Subtract previous meter number, right, from the current, and that would give you total gallons consumed. Is this correct?
Correct.
And based on this, the total gallons of water consumed for this 1 month was 263,679 gallons. Is this correct?
That is correct.
Director, this is one of a series of billings in the governor's records with extremely high volumes of water usage, more than 6 gallons a minute, according to this one bill for his household. Do you know why the governor uses so much water?
As of this date, no. The date on the bill, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Is 1 meter tied to one account?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible for CUC to combine usage charges from multiple meters into a single account for billing purposes? For example, if a customer has multiple properties, let's say, all over the island, and meters on each property, could that particular customer have meter readings from all the different meters consolidated into one account and reflected into one billing?
I don't believe so.
So you're saying you cannot do that?
No, we do not.
Okay. Does CUC do that sometimes? Is there exceptions?
No.
To that? No. Okay. So there are no circumstances of this. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
There are no special circumstances for this?
No, there are not. Now, when we do a meter change out, there are going to be 2 meters applied
Right.
because there's an old one and a new one.
Mm.
So you'll see 2 meters on one billing.
So are these adjustments, if there are adjustments, would they be done manually through the CUC's billing system?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay. Are meter readings from more than 1 meter combined in this way for any of the accounts associated with Governor Ralph Torres?
Now, you're asking me if there's more than one electric meter combined under
combined.
one bill.
Yes.
I do not believe so.
And just also, just so we're aware, if we look at the rates, Governor Torres is being charged government rate. That's correct. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, according to the base rates per kilowatt hour, the more you use, right, the higher the amount goes. Is that correct? For
Correct.
example, if we look at consumption of base rates per kilowatt hour, 1,201 and over, residential is at 0.1580. Government is at 0.1240. So with that stated, would you say that well, obviously the government rate at this level is lower than what the residential rate would pay? Is that correct?
At what you prescribed, that is, but I'm not certain of that.
Okay. I'm basing this on the CUC rate structure. I will give you a copy of this later.
Sure.
But Madam Chair, I do have further questions, but I'll yield at this time. And Director, thank you again.
Not a
I
problem.
appreciate you.
Thank you. And just for planning purposes, we will continue this morning up until about 12 or 12:30-ish, around that time. Then we will break for lunch and then come back at 2 p.m., just to let you know.
Understood.
At this time, I would like to recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Executive Director.
Morning.
Thank you for being with us this morning. My line of questioning is kind of right along. Here's, Director, are you familiar with the government's practice of authorizing the payments of utilities at the private residence of governors and lieutenant governors?
My understanding is that when we bill everybody and we channel it through the Department of Finance.
Okay. So how does it work for CUC's perspective?
Like any other government agency,
Mhm.
we send it to, we collect the billing, calculate it, and send it up to the Department of Finance. Department of Finance then makes the required payments.
Okay, thank you. How many private utility accounts may a governor or lieutenant governor have that can be covered by the government?
I really don't know that. I don't dictate that. If they brought in one, CUC would accept it. If they brought in 5, CUC would accept it. If they brought in 10, CUC would accept it. It's the policy from the government that will make that determination whether 1, 5, or 10 is acceptable or not.
So in other words, there's really no limit, no?
As far as the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation, no.
Okay. So does CUC have a process in place for ensuring that those limits or no limits are followed?
Again, with no limits, I don't see a policy restricting anything.
So I think earlier you said that CUC accept whatever is brought in, correct?
Well, if there's an applicant, and it's a different location, for a different type of service, then yes.
Okay, all right. I was thinking maybe there might be limits to government.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Now, we've got hundreds and hundreds of government accounts. We have many under one agency, a good many under one particular agency. So again, we don't have a policy, from my understanding, to limit that number for any government entity.
That's a very, very interesting answer. No limits. It's very good. So anyway, I'll move forward with what I'm going to ask next. We'll probably come back to that no limits. So CUC has several kinds of rates. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
For power, water, and wastewater,
Yes, sir.
residential, commercial, and government.
Correct.
And there are different tiers on this within those categories.
That is correct.
And the government rate is the highest rate.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you. So what rates are the governor and lieutenant governor charged at?
They're being charged government rates.
Are there specific employees that CUC assigned to handle the accounts of the governor?
Not specifically the governor, no.
Okay. But you do have them, right?
Do have
CUC personnel assigned to his account?
not as specific, from my understanding, not a specific individual. But of course, we channel it normally through whoever's available. Yeah.
Thank you. How many residential accounts does Governor Torres have, if you may have that answer?
Government accounts,
The residential first.
Residential government, my understanding is one.
Okay, thank you. And where would this account be at?
And as residents,
Which would be
my understanding at this time, it's in Esteo.
Stale. And this residential account is paid for by the government, correct, sir?
It is billed and paid for by the Department of Finance.
Okay, so he only has one resident. Okay, got that.
That is my understanding.
Okay, and
If you use this one, just go ahead and number it. I think this is 54.
Mhm.
Yeah. So go ahead and clear on the record.
okay. So got that rate up there. All right, thank you. We have an exhibit up there on display. Director, we submitted for the record this memo. Is it up? Exhibit. It would be 55. All right, thank you. We submit for record this memo from CUC dated December 19, 2016, and addressed to Management and Budget Special Assistant Virginia Villagomez, confirming that an account under the name of Judy Marie Torres was actually for the residence of Governor Ralph Torres. Is this your signature up here, sir? Can you bring it up to the signature?
Yes, it is my signature.
Okay. Who is Marie or Judy Marie Torres?
Judy Marie Torres is the registered account holder for that particular account.
Okay. Yeah, and the purpose of the memo was to notify OMB that this was the residence of the governor, of Governor Torres, so that the account could be paid by the government. Is this correct?
No,
No.
that is not correct. It was not a notification that this was the governor's residence. I don't make that determination. It is that payment was made. And of course, what I was informed that this was the residence of the governor, Ralph Torres.
Okay, and do you know the location of this residence, sir?
This particular account's in Culberville.
Copleville. Have you been there?
Yes, I have.
Mhm.
I had gone there after a typhoon.
So how did
I
you
know.
verify that this Copleville residence under the account named Judy Marie Torres was actually the residence of Governor Torres?
I was informed
You were informed. By
Correct.
whom, sir?
by, as I said, as per your request, Miss Virginia Villagomez with OMB.
Okay.
And I'm providing the information she had requested.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you put up the next exhibit, please?
Before we proceed, I'd like to ask a few clarifying questions. First of all, can you help us understand better and walk us through the process of making payments to the governor's or lieutenant governor's account? Sorry, do you typically get a notice from anybody in the governor's office? The lieutenant governor was here last week, and according to his office, the special assistant for administration, Miss Rosario, would typically send a memo out with the billing or something like that. Can you please help us walk us through the process of making payments for the governor's account?
It is my understanding that we, CUC, of course, collects and determines the billing. At that point, it is sent to the Department of Finance.
So you don't necessarily wait for a memo from Miss Rosario?
That's correct.
Okay. Another thing, you mentioned that, you know,
Excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, that's correct. As I mentioned earlier, we collect the billing and then we forward it to the Department of Finance for payment, as we do other government agencies.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned earlier that, there are many applicants, and typically when an applicant comes in to establish or apply for an account at CUC, that you typically just accept the application. There are no limits as to how many an applicant can apply for. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
What about if it's on the same property, as in the case of Governor Torres?
Well, I mean, if it's a different service, different structure, different establishment on the same property, then obviously those are independent billings. Yes,
Have you ever been to Governor Torres's residence in Esteo?
I have.
And how many structures are, to the best of your recollection, how many structures are there?
From my vantage point, the guardhouse is where I normally stop. Four,
About four.
maybe
approximately.
four. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And question, are there any government entities that avail of prepaid meters?
Yes, many.
Okay, good enough. Okay, at this time, Rep. Camacho, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Next exhibit. Director, we submit for the record another memo to OMB's Virginia Villagomez, which reiterates that the Governor Torres was residing in Coplerville using Jody Torres' account from January 15 to October 18. From November 18 on, according to the memo, the official residence was Esteo. First question is, can you bring up the signature portion? Okay, bring it up to the signature portion. It's an initial. All right. Director, is this your initial up here on the display?
That is, and my apologies, that is a signature.
That is a signature. So I'm going to ask, is this your signature?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Do you recall sending Ms. Villagomez this memo?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. Is the Esteo property where the governor resides his private property, or does it belong to the government?
The Esteo?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. So when you said that Governor Torres's official residence as of November 2018 was in Esteo, that just meant that he was actually living there, and the CUC account to charge to the government would be Esteo and not Coplerville. Wouldn't that be correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And more than one account should not have been charged to the government for the same period. Is that correct, sir?
For his residence, yes.
Okay. And how did you verify governor's relocation and actual residence in Esteo?
Through his office.
To his office. So you did speak to him?
I
Or-
didn't necessarily speak to him.
Okay. And how did you communicate?
His office communicated, I think, with my customer service
Okay.
department.
So,
Now, if I may, I'm not certain if it was his office. It could have been OMB. I'm not sure, or Department of Finance, but it was communicated to CUC.
okay, very good. We reviewed the governor's utility bills from the year 2015 through 2021, which CUC submitted to this committee pursuant to a subpoena dus tecum. And according to the records, in addition to the Coplerville account that was under Judy Torres's name, the governor subsequently had at least 3 metered accounts associated with his Esteo property. One for the main residence, one for an outside kitchen, a piggery, and a garage, and one for a guardhouse. We submit for the record. Now, can you bring up the exhibit, please? Okay. We submit for the record exhibit number 57, a memo from CUC notes showing piggery, outside kitchen, guardhouse, and a garage supplied by this meter. Are you aware of these 3 metered accounts at the governor's Esteo property, sir?
Can you go up?
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with it, but if they're for electric, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are all 3 accounts charged at the government rates?
I don't think they are. No.
Okay. So then, by chance, besides the 3, are there any other meters at the Esteo property?
No, I'm not certain, but I would imagine these would be the meters.
Okay. Are there any other CUC services that are not metered at the Esteo property?
From my understanding, no, all services is metered.
Okay. The record seems to show that the CNMI taxpayers paid for the governor's bills at multiple locations and at times for the same period. In other words, CNMI taxpayers paid for more than one residential account at the same time. If you would, please put up the exhibit for me. Thank you.
Before we proceed, one moment. Can we go back a little bit? I still have questions on other. Thank you, Cam. Can we put up the other memo to Miss Virginia Villagomez for a moment? It is a memo dated 12/19/2016. So this would be a memo that you, can we go down, scroll down to the signature page? Signature area, okay, there we go. Is this your signature, Mr. Camacho?
Yes, ma'am.
So this would be an earlier memo prior to the December 2019 memo. And we submit this for the record. CUC memo dated 12/19/2016, which would be exhibit number 55, and addressed to Management and Budget Special Assistant, Miss Virginia Villagomez, confirming that the account number 66904 is in the name of Miss Judy Marie Torres, was actually for the residence of Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall this memo in 2016?
No, I don't recall it, but I'm
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
sure.
And to your knowledge, what is the relationship between Miss Judy Marie Torres and Governor Ralph Torres?
It is my understanding that that's their siblings.
Thank you. And the purpose of this memo was again to attest that this account number registered to Miss Torres, Judy Marie Torres, is actually the residence for the governor. Is that correct?
Yeah, as requested by Ms. Villagomez, because of the guard shack, the guardhouse that was there, it was determined that this was the governor's residence.
Okay. Do you know if the guard shack is still there?
From my understanding, it was transferred with the account to the Esteo site. That's where we're billing now.
So there's no guard sentry there in any way. Is that correct? In Kovler?
From my understanding.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I just know where we're billing.
Okay. Also, I wanted to bring up the rate schedule first for CUC, if we can put that up, Cam. And we are entering this as Exhibit 54, which is the CUC rate schedule. I know that this may have been updated recently, but nonetheless, the rates are basically similar. And it's publicly available, from my understanding. And CUC has several different rates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Different for power, different for water, different for wastewater. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it also has different rates for residential, commercial, and government rates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there are also different tiers within these categories of residential, commercial, and government rates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've already answered earlier that the highest rate is the government rate. Is that correct?
Yes.
What rates are the governor and lieutenant governor being charged? Their accounts
But my understanding is, and should be, the government.
should be the government. And are there specific employees that handle the accounts of the governor at CUC?
Customer service primarily, and it's normally with well, most of them do.
Most.
But we have had the supervisor work on it quite a bit also.
And who would that supervisor be?
Shani Cabrera.
And can you tell us how many accounts are under the governor's name? Utility accounts. I know you mentioned approximately 4 earlier.
Yeah, but I would imagine three is what I can.
So 3
Two
or
or-
4,
yeah.
is that correct? Is that your testimony?
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Yeah, from
Do you know where all of these accounts or meters are located?
no.
And are all of these 2 or 3 accounts paid for by the government?
No.
No. Are all of these accounts charged at the government rate?
No.
Okay. That's all the clarifying questions I have. We may proceed, Rep. Ben.
Thank you. So, did we bring it up, the exhibit number 58? So, Director, there's a log sheet of billings totaling $36,069.56 for the account number 66904, Judy Torres, covering the period January 2015 to September 2018. According to the records, the last government payment on this account occurring on September 6, 2018. Also on Exhibit 57, a billing for $2,940.92 for account number 82274 for Asteo for the period April 2017 through August 2018, with the last government payment for this account occurring on October 2nd, 2018. And based on the CUC memo submitted in the exhibit, this was the meter supplying electricity to the piggery, the outside kitchen, and a garage in Asteo. So based on these records, would you agree that the government paid for the governor's utilities at 2 locations
Thank you.
in both Cobblerville and Asteo, overlapping periods of time, including electricity associated with a piggery? And we will come back on that question, okay? The records also show that unlike the lieutenant governor who testified last week that he follows an established process by which his CUC billings get submitted to the Special Assistance for Administration to be processed for payment by finance, at times Governor Torres has paid his CUC bills upfront and have gotten reimbursed for it later. An example of that would be on Exhibit 17, I think, previously presented. Got it. Okay. Thank you. And this exhibit is showing a cash payment made in March 13.
I'm sorry, Congressman.
Okay. So this exhibit shows a cash payment made in March 2013, 2019 by Governor Torres for $6,630.70 for account number 82273 for his Asteo property, covering the period from October 2018 to February 2019, and for which he was reimbursed by the government the next day on March 14, 2019. Interestingly, CUC records also indicate the governor has made other large payments in cash for his bills, as in exhibit, next one, 60, 59. Okay, it's up there. All right. Which shows a $5,407.24 cash payment made in October 18. We've asked this of other witnesses before, and we will ask you the same question, please, sir. Does the governor's payment of his utilities in such large amounts of cash strike you as maybe unusual or something? Does it bring a red flag? Anything like that?
It is unusual, but it is not uncommon.
Okay. Can you kind of explain on that real
Well,
quick?
there are a number of customers that do come in with large amounts. I'm again, I'm dumbfounded that I'm surprised that people would take large amounts with them to go make payments for, frankly speaking, anywhere, CUC or anywhere else for that matter. But we do get large payments in cash, and so again, it's it's surprising, but it's not uncommon.
Okay. So, but we're talking about reimbursements here. Okay, thank you. Have you ever seen other governor or lieutenant governors pay his CUC bill with such large cash, sir?
I was never in a role
Mm-hmm.
to be involved or even be informed as to any activities pertaining to any governor's accounts prior. And frankly speaking, even anybody's account, even today, I don't get very much information about any account.
Okay, thank you. Can you bring up the next exhibit, please? That would be number 61. Okay. Yeah. That would be for 99. $99,000.
Sure. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask some clarifying questions of the witness. Our legal counsel gave you an Excel spreadsheet just now because it's difficult to look at all the figures on a piece of screen, and it's a 2-pager. So I wanted to bring to your attention at least three accounts in the name of Governor Ralph Torres and one in the name of his sibling, Miss Judy Marie Torres. So pursuant to your memo of 2016, the governor was residing in Coblerville, and that account is under Judy Marie Torres, account number 66904, of which the government paid for that account in particular, to the tune of $36,069.56 from the periods of February 2015 and all the way through October of 2018 was the last payment made. Do you see that, Mr. Camacho?
Yes, I do.
Okay, also during the same time period, which was previously introduced as exhibit number 17, the governor submitted a reimbursement for account number 8227 82273, which also covered the same time period. I'm sorry, 82274 covered the same period as the account that was paid under Miss Judy Torres to the tune of $2,940.92. Would you say then that the government paid for two separate accounts for Governor Torres in different locations? Is that correct?
It seems to be, but I really, there are times that there's back payments, so I'm not certain if that was indeed the case, but it seems to be.
But they covered the same time period.
Yes.
Yes, so the government did pay for two different accounts, one in Miss Judy Marie Torres' name in Coblerville, and one in Governor Ralph Torres' name for the same time period.
And what were those periods? If you don't mind me asking, Madam Chair.
No problem. We've been paying for 66904, which is under Miss Judy Marie Torres since February of 2015, all the way through September of
Yes.
2018. And then we've been also, through a reimbursement memo, Governor Torres sought reimbursement for 82274 in his name from the period of April 19th, 2017 to September of 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I recognize Representative Ed Probst.
Thank you. Just for a clarifying question. So based on these records, Director, as we see, there are two accounts, in fact, being paid for the same time frame. Is that correct? Based on what we have here with our exhibits.
If I may, Congressman,
Please.
Madam Chair, if I can get just give me a minute for clarification.
Yes, you may.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
You may proceed.
Yes, as I was alluding to earlier, in my response to your question, this spreadsheet obviously is the spreadsheet that I've received. I need to verify through our records whether that is indeed the case, that the billings were the same time periods, because there may have been a different cycle involved, but billed that time. So if I can do that, that would be, then I can get accurate information back to you, Madam Chair.
We can go back to that, but you mentioned a different cycle. Can you explain that to us?
Well, I mean, the readings are read and then billed in different months. What some of the payments are could be paid for a different period. And there are customers that fall behind on that. And so whatever is read at a certain period of the month, then could be paid maybe at a later time, later in the month, or later in the following month. So yeah, so I just need to make sure, because I'm receiving a spreadsheet, and I would just like to just clarify that.
So what you're saying is, but meters are read monthly, is that correct? All meters are read monthly. They're not read like 2 years down the line,
No.
or they're read monthly?
They're read monthly, and they're read in different groups at a time.
Okay.
And sometimes they overlap from one month to another. So again, I just wanted to verify, and that would then provide you the accurate information. That's all I'm trying to do.
We won't go into that right now, but perhaps you can do it over the lunch hour. We're
Sure.
willing to. We also have the records that you provided, and that's how this spreadsheet came about
Understood.
when we were comparing multiple counts of Governor Ralph Delgado Torres and his reimbursement requests over years.
Okay.
I'd like to recognize Representative Ed Probst at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to just touch base a little bit earlier. One of the questions about that was asked with the governor making cash payments. One of them that was stated earlier by Rep. Camacho was that Governor Torres on March 13, 2019, made a cash payment of $6,630.70. And another one was for $5,407.24. Both instances were cash payments. And we had asked others before if this seems, this large amount, if it strikes you as unusual. You said it is unusual, but not uncommon. You had mentioned not uncommon because there are customers that do come in and make those type of payments. Can I ask you, have you or any of your members ever seen any governor or any lieutenant governor come in and make such large cash payments?
I have never ever seen in any governor, or frankly speaking, anybody, because I'm not at the cash register, but I've never heard of a governor making such large payments in cash. Again, as I said, those forms of payments they're unusual, but they're not uncommon.
Thank you.
So I don't know any history that I can refer to, with all due respect, Congressman, about any other governor.
Thank you. And I say that for practicality and just for practical purposes. You know, gentlemen normally carry a wallet around, right? Not much in here, but if I were to open my wallet and let's just say I were to make a payment, my bill was $6,630. I would need, the biggest denomination is $100 bill. Is that accurate? Yes.
Yes.
I would need 67 $100 bills in my wallet. I couldn't close my wallet if I had 67 one. That's the amount that we're talking about. And that's why so many find it unbelievable. First of all, there's no way I would even carry that type of cash because of fear of something happening to my wallet, getting robbed or whatever. It's just unusual. And that's why we say, and then to make another payment with such a large amount, because the average person would use their credit card or their debit card, because no one carries, the average person, and you know, unless you're talking about President Trump, but the average person does not carry around that type of cash. It's just not practical. And that's why the question was asked. It was when this was brought up and we saw that this was a cash payment, the entire, not just our chair, but our committee, even our legal counsels were surprised that somebody, especially being the governor, would make that type of payment. And that's why that question was asked. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. One more before we proceed with Rep. Ben Camacho. So based on the records that you have provided to this committee, the government paid for two different accounts or two locations, Kobler and Esteo, for Governor Torres during overlapping periods of time. And that includes the account associated with the piggery at his Esteo residence. Is that correct?
It is my understanding that yes, the electric, I don't know. It was my understanding that the water, since it was only 1 meter, was covering the whole facility.
Thank you. Rep. Ben Camacho, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. And we have that exhibit up. For the same account in Esteo, we submit another exhibit, which is up there by the government and showing a payment by the government of, it's a big number, $99,724.54 for account number 82273, covering the period from March 2019 through May 2021, paid in May 2021. Finally, for the guardhouse in Esteo, would you put up that other exhibit? Okay. Exhibit number 62 is for account number 88428, which shows total payments by the government of $4,086.68 between August 2019 and July 2021. According to the records revealed, total billings for the governor's utilities between January 2015 and August 2021, to include his sister's account in Coplerville and his 3 accounts in Esteo, amounts to $278.68. That's a lot of money. Mr. Camacho, based on your experience and observations in all your years at CUC, does this seem excessive for a household?
You know, I really don't like to venture too far into how people live their lives and what they do at their homes. But I can refer to, as I mentioned before, the average, whatever it is from there is really a determination by this committee. But for me, is if it exceeds that average, then obviously it ventures further and further away from the norm.
Yeah, and we're only talking about one person here. So with that, Chair, I yield for now.
So would you say $177,278 is above average, way above average?
Yes, very much so.
I'd like to recognize Representative Ed Probst at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarifying question. Director, the governor, through his payments to CUC, has he been late a few times on his payments?
Yes, he has.
Okay. It's been late several months, has it not?
That's correct.
Did anyone at any time issue a disconnection notice for the governor?
I don't. Yes, they have.
Was his power ever disconnected?
No. I'm not sure. I've not heard from him in that regard. But my understanding is we're not certain whether they have or not.
Well, based on the records that we've reviewed, we saw no records of any disconnection payment or reconnection fee, which is the norm. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So based on those records, if he were disconnected, it would have appeared in those records. Is that correct?
Yes, they would have.
So based on that, we know, based on these records, that the governor was never disconnected. Is that correct?
It seems to be the case, yes.
Okay. Why does the governor get preferential treatment over our residences, many of whom have been just a day late, who have had their power disconnected and had to pay a reconnection fee? What can we say to our ratepayers who have been disconnected while the governor has been late several months and never disconnected?
Well, that is not the CUC policy, that's for sure. If there's any issues with that, then I'm going to have to look into it.
Who makes a determination not to disconnect the governor?
Depending on the communication, and the commitment for payment from the Department of Finance, it has come to my attention in the past, and I obviously been in communication with finance and others, which I'm informed will be taken care of quickly.
Based on the fact that the governor has never been disconnected, despite the fact that he has been late on record, on different occasions, does the governor receive preferential treatment from CUC compared to regular residential customers?
Again, it's payments from the Department of Finance, and those communications are with them. And when I'm being told that the payment is on its way or will be dealt with very quickly, then I make the decision sometimes not to, and wait for that payment.
Even though it's several months late.
Even though it's several months late, if I may, with all due respect to each and every one of you, many of the government agencies are behind. Many of them. This building, from my understanding, is behind on its payments. Most agencies are behind on their payments. I don't disconnect them, and I say this with all due respect to everyone. I don't disconnect it for the very reason that it's a government and the government needs to operate.
Thank you.
I just deal with it that way. But to answer your question, Congressman, it is it's my decision. I'm involved in that.
Thank you, Director. And please understand where I'm coming from. The government did not build his residence in Asteo. Is that correct?
That is correct.
He lives there with his family. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
It's a residential property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Therefore, it is not a government property. And that's why, Director, it hurts me and anyone listening to this if we're going to compare the governor's private property, his $1 million property in Asteo, that somehow it is just like a government entity. It is not, sir. And I do not feel that that is proper to even compare his residence. It is not like you are disconnecting the the office of the governor. I understand that that gets late, and this does. But with all due respect, Director, if this building were late on a payment, I hope you will disconnect it, because we should not be late on payments made to CUC. That is part of the problem. But for a private residence to be late several months is insulting to all of our constituents who have been disconnected in the past from CUC. Please understand that, sir. We respond to our constituents and their complaints. And many of them cannot understand why the governor does receive preferential treatment. Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
And if I may respond to that, again, with all due respect, Congressman, and this body, when I'm informed and when the utilities are informed that this is for the governor's official residence, please understand that that's all we're going through when it's coming from a government entity, which is going to dictate the account. So that's if that's not the case, then it shouldn't be referred that way.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. You mentioned earlier that Governor Torres has been issued disconnection notices. Is that correct?
That is correct.
When were those disconnection notices issued to him?
I'm sorry, but I don't have that information in front
Okay,
of me.
because can we get a copy of that? According to the records you submitted, there are no disconnection notices, and I'm wondering why we were not given that those documents. So please, if you could produce those documents for the
Sure.
committee.
And just for clarification, Chair, you know, again, the document was signed on the 13th. I received it noon
Yes.
on the 18th, and then
Yes.
I had a day and a half to prepare. So again, my
Understood.
apologies for that, but we'll definitely get it to you, Madam Chair.
Understood. And we acknowledge the timeliness of the, or untimeliness of the subpoena versus the deadline to submit them.
Yes, ma'am.
And as we have afforded every opportunity to every witness that has been summoned, we normally give them time. All they have to do is ask, request for it in writing, and we typically extend it, you know, further. So that's an
Sure.
option also,
Okay.
just for your information. But yes, at this time, are there any comments from any of the members? Rep. Donald Minglonia or Vice Chair BJ Atto, if you have any comments before we break for the lunch hour? If there are,
Not at this time. Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
thank you, Vice Chair. Rep. Probst or Rep. Camacho, do you have any further comments? No. At this time, we will break, take a recess for the lunch hour, and we will come back at 2 p.m.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair and Bonnie.
Thank you. Recess.